Look, top story of the day. There's been many people debating and discussing a ruling that came in today and the impact that it potentially has on police officers. Some people are calling it a very dark day for policing. Well, let's cross live then, shall we, to our home and security editor, Mark White. Mark, bring us up to speed with what exactly has happened.
Well, this is an issue around the Metropolitan Police and other police forces effectively trying to clean up house to ensure that those police officers within the service are not or are, all of them at least, fit and proper to hold the rank of a police constable and have no skeletons in their closet, if you like, that requires them to be dismissed. This all, of course, follows the murder of Sarah Everard in 2021 by the serving police officer PC Wayne Couzens, and a slew of other allegations since that really have resulted in the Metropolitan Police in particular receiving an absolute reputational kicking. A review by Baroness Casey described the Metropolitan Police as not only institutionally racist, but also misogynistic and homophobic. And so since then, there's been a lot of soul-searching, internal processes, an operation which has really aimed to look at all those currently serving within the police service to just check their past and to vet them again to make sure, as I say, that they're fit and proper to hold that post. And this particular individual, a sergeant called Lino Di Maria, was found to have a number of allegations that had been made against him of rape, sexual assault, claims that he'd also sent inappropriate messages to colleagues at work. So the police decided to revoke his vetting and institute the process to dismiss him. He has appealed that. He's gone to the High Court. There was a judicial review granted. The findings of that judicial review come back and they've said effectively that this officer is right, that his human rights were being infringed under Article 6 of the Human Rights Act because he wasn't allowed due process. He wasn't allowed to present his side of the argument to rebut any of the allegations, and that the Metropolitan Police and other forces are acting outside of the law here in the way that they are operating with these dismissals if people fail the vetting process.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just trying to look at the opposite side of this because, I mean, a lot of people are divided on this, but it has been called a dark day for policing. So if you've got a situation where you've got a serving officer, someone's then made some allegations about him, you know, he's done this, he's done that, he's done the other, whatever. Surely, though, you wouldn't essentially fire that person until you've investigated and that person has been proved guilty. So now, in this new world, would that person be put on, say, desk duty while those investigations were taking place?
Well, there's a range of options that the police have available to them depending on what the allegations are. And at the end of the day, you know, the allegations may be proved and they could be disciplined, a verbal warning, they could be suspended for a while, and ultimately they could be sacked as well. But in terms of the process, what effectively has been happening is that, you know, if you apply to join the police, you have to go through a vetting procedure. They look into your criminal past, they look into your finances, your family and your associates, just to try to check that you are a fit and proper person to become a police officer. If they are, if they look upon some of the aspects of your character and your past behaviour as being someone who they consider to be of bad character, you don't get into the police service in the first place. The difficulty comes when you're accepted and you're in employment. Then you're subject to employment laws as well and protected supposedly by employment laws. But they continue to vet officers on a regular basis during their career. But if they find that there are aspects then of their character through further vetting that shows that they are perhaps not fit and proper, you've got to go through the proper procedure to get rid of them. And if you're going outside of those procedures and trying to sack them because of what the vetting procedure has turned up, then you get what we've got today with the judicial review saying that person's rights were infringed here. What it requires is a change in the law to toughen up the rules around what police can and can't do if they find that you are failing the vetting procedure. Successive Home Secretaries have been asked repeatedly to toughen up the rules here by Chief Constables. They've all failed to do that. Finally, we're hearing that the Labour government is going to go down the path of toughening up those rules so that Chief Constables, like the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, can sack people if they fail their vetting tests.
Interesting stuff. Mark White, thank you very much for bringing us up to speed with that. What do you think to this at home then? Are you sitting there thinking this all basically makes sense? Is this a step in the right direction, a step in the wrong direction? Let's hear from Metropolitan Police Chief then, shall we? Mark Rowley.
Today's ruling on the law has left policing in a hopeless position. We now have no mechanism to rid the Met officers who are not fit to hold vetting. Those who cannot be trusted to work with women, or those who cannot be trusted to enter the homes of vulnerable people. It is absolutely absurd that we cannot lawfully sack them.
Well, I want your thoughts on this. Do you know that name, that Wayne Couzens? Even just hearing that man's name, it's just enough, isn't it, to send a shiver down your spine. I'll never forget that guy had the audacity, ladies and gents, to actually appeal his sentence. Do you remember that? You've got to question what actually goes through the mind. How egotistical, how warped must you be, not least to have done that in the first place, but then to have got your tariff and sit there and pontificate to yourself and think, do you know what, it's a really good look for me now to try and get a reduced sentence. I mean, goodness gracious me. Get in touch with me and tell me your thoughts. You, Ben Habib, we've just been hearing there then about these new changes when it comes to policing and the ease at which a police force would be able to get rid of a potential wrong-un.
Well, I think it is a dark day for the police. You know, if we're to trust the police with policing the nation, we have to trust them with policing their own organisation. And actually, the right to dismiss someone for whatever reason from an organisation has to be a much lower bar than a judicial process. A police officer, or indeed someone employed in private enterprise or any other of the public sector bodies, has a duty to fulfil. And their ability to fulfill that duty has to be judged by their superiors. And if the superiors judge them incapable of fulfilling that duty, whatever that duty is, then there has to be a mechanism by which to terminate their employment. This is not, you can't go to trial every time you want to dismiss someone from employment. It just doesn't make any sense. And Mark White said the Labour Party is bringing in a bill to toughen it up, employment law, but actually they're going to toughen it up the wrong way. They're going to make it even more difficult to get rid of employees. And I think it is a complete mess if the police can't sack an individual that they think, amongst their own, who they think isn't fit to do the job and may actually present a danger to the public. And I just want to draw a parallel, if I may quickly, before you move away from me, between what happened today with the police and the Financial Conduct Authority a couple of years ago, with Chris Benodi, who happens to be a Brexiteer and was until then a successful fund manager. Accusations were made against Chris Benodi, none of which I believe were proven, that he had inappropriately behaved with women and done all sorts of things. And the FCA moved to end his ability to do business. They tore his business apart and they put him out of business without even a criminal trial taking place. And yet today, you have the police, who are charged with the responsibility of protecting the public, not being able to dismiss one of their own because, you know, because of the court standing in the way. Human rights standing in the way. It is absolutely absurd. The human rights of the population, yet again, being put second fiddle to the human rights of an individual. And we see that right across the board, of course, with illegal migration, etc. The human rights law of this country desperately needs to be changed.
Can I just correct, Ben, is that what what Mark White made clear is that actually the Home Secretary is going to toughen up the employment thing so that it's easier for Mark Rowley and other chief constables to get rid of
But that's not what the Employment Rights Bill that's going through Parliament at the moment does. It makes it more difficult.
Ben, that is what Yvette Cooper's going to do. Mark made it absolutely clear that that's what she's going to do.
What, specifically with the police?
Specifically with the police, because actually it is really important, and particularly with the Metropolitan Police, is that over and over again we have had cases of officers taking advantage of vulnerable women who they go and see, and they might be on drugs, and they might have been people who've had domestic abuse, and actually sexually assaulting them or coercive behaviour. And I think Mark Rowley is absolutely right that he is trying to get rid of people. And this isn't about one person. There are 300 people that the police have got on this, that if you fail your vetting, then they say you failed your vetting. And once you failed your vetting, you can't be a police officer. And it's absolutely right. And can I say that there's something called DBS, which is for people like me. So I've got it. I've been vetted so that I can be on the board of children's charities, that sort of thing. But if you work for, and so the police just look at my criminal record, which I haven't got. But if you work for it, then what the police do is they go into their sort of rather more secret files where you've been accused of a crime but not necessarily found guilty. And that's what happens with these people. And it's really, really important. And what Mark Rowley is trying to do is he is trying to get it so that, as you say, and as Mark White said, he is trying to get it so that we can trust the police, because what the Sarah Everard case showed, but unfortunately there are many, many others, is that the police actually take advantage of their position. Not all of them. There's lots and lots of good police.
What do you mean, take advantage of their position?
Well, because they're a policeman, they can tell you what to do. I mean, that's exactly what he did, wasn't it? Because they're a policeman.
They exploit their position.
They exploit their position. Yeah.
One of my viewers, Barry, he's got in touch and says, can you tell Ben Habib is wrong? He says unfounded allegations against somebody is very different to something having been proven. So I think what Barry is saying, he's slightly concerned that vexatious claims, I could say, Ben Habib, he's done this and he's done that and all the rest of it.
And, I mean, it was an affront to me that on a potentially vexatious claim, I don't know whether it was vexatious or not, when those women accused Chris Benodi of having done stuff, that actually his business was torn apart, his reputation was absolutely destroyed without a criminal trial taking place. But dismissing someone from employment has to be a lower bar than going to court and being found guilty of something. It has to be, particularly if you're in a position of trust. And, where would we be if employers couldn't get rid of employees without going to trial? The right thing to do here is give the police the ability to terminate employment, and then the aggrieved employee can bring a case for compensation or for reinstatement, and they can have it out afterwards. But in the first instance, the employment should be set aside, and then a judicial or tribunal process, as is normally the case, can take place, post termination.
Benny, you've got it. Benny and Barry, you should set up a band. Benny has got in touch and said, Michelle, I used to respect the police, but now in recent years, I feel like he's saying he feels like he lacks sympathy with them. He feels, his words, that they pander to every work cause whilst persecuting anyone that they perceived to be what he says is right-wing, and that has made him distrust the police. What I would say in response to that, Benny, if I may, is I actually feel sorry for frontline police officers often, because a lot of these policy decisions, strategy decisions, is not coming often from the frontline police officer. It's coming from strategic management, from the bosses, from those layers above. And then the poor souls that risk their lives getting out of 999 calls with goodness only knows what in front of them, risking their life. They don't know if they're going to go home to their kids, their wives, their loved ones at the end of the shift. I feel feel sorry for those guys often because they put themselves at risk for us, and they are impacted by these absurd policies that are coming from management. But you might have a different view. If you do, get in touch and tell me. All views welcome.